In today's lesson of child psychology, we will continue our discussion about personality development and emergence of self-development and self-esteem. The main objectives of this lesson are to understand briefly what personality and what are the factors that influence the development of personality during childhood. 2. Personality during childhood, which includes concept of self-esteem and how development of self-concept and self-esteem occurs. Introduction. What is personality? The word personality itself stems from the Latin word persona, which refers to a theatrical mask worn by performers in order to either project different roles or disguise their identities. At its most basic, personality is the characteristic patterns of thoughts, feelings and behaviors that make a person unique. It is believed that personality arises from within the individual and remains fairly consistent throughout life. While there are many different definitions of personality, most focus on the pattern of behaviors and characteristics that can explain or that can help predict and explain a person's behavior. Explanations for personality can focus on a variety of influences, ranging from genetic explanations for personality traits to the role of the environment and experience in shaping an individual's personality. During childhood, social and personality development emerges through the interaction of social influences, biological maturation, and the child's representations of the social world and the self. This interaction is illustrated in a discussion of the influence of significant relationships, the development of social understanding, the growth of personality, and the development of social and emotional competence in childhood. Understanding of social and personality development requires looking at children from three perspectives that interact to shape development. The first is the social context in which each child lives, especially the relationships that provide security, guidance, and knowledge. The second is biological maturation that supports developing social and emotional competence and underlies temperamental individuality. The third is children's developing representations of themselves and the social world. Social and personality development is best understood as a continuous interaction between these social, biological, and representational aspects of psychological development. Relationships. This interaction can be observed in the development of the earliest relationships between infants and their parents in the first year. Virtually all infants living in normal circumstances develop strong emotional attachments to those who care for them. Psychologists believe that development of these attachments is a biologically natural as learning to walk and not simply a byproduct of the parents' provision of food or warmth. Rather, achievements have evolved in humans because they promote children's motivation to stay close to those who care for them and, as a consequence, to benefit from the learning, security, guidance, warmth, and affirmation that close relations provide. As a consequence, to benefit from the learning, security, guidance, warmth, and affirmation that close relationships provide. Although nearly all infants develop emotional attachments to their caregivers, parents, relatives, or nannies, their sense of security in those attachments varies. Infants become securely attached when their parents respond sensitively to them, reinforcing the infant's confidence that their parents will provide support when needed. Infants become insecurely attached when care is inconsistent or neglectful. These infants tend to respond avoidantly, resistantly, or in a disorganized manner. Such insecure attachments are not necessarily the result of deliberately bad parenting, but are often a byproduct of circumstances. For example, an overworked single mother may find herself overstressed and fatigued at the end of the day, making fully involved childcare very difficult. In other cases, some parents are simply poorly emotionally equipped to take on the responsibility of caring for a child. Next, peer relationships. Parent-child relationships are not the only significant relationships in a child's life. Peer relationships are also important. Social interaction with another child who is similar in age, skills and knowledge provokes the development of many social skills that are valuable for the rest of life. In peer relationships, children learn how to initiate and maintain social interactions with other children. They learn skills for managing conflict such as taking turn, compromise and bargaining. Play also involves the mutual, sometimes complex coordination of goals, actions and understanding. As infants, children get their first encounter with sharing of each other's toys during pretend play. As preschoolers, they create narratives together, choose roles and collaborate to act out their stories. And in primary school, they may join a sports team, learning to work together and support each others emotionally and strategically toward a common goal. Through these experiences, children develop friendships that provide additional source of security and support to those provided by their parents. Social understanding. As we have seen, children's experience of relationships at home and the peer group contributes to an expanding repertoire of social and emotional skills and also to broaden social understanding. In these relationships, children develop expectations for specific people, leading, for example, to secure or insecure attachments to parents. Understanding of how to interact with adults and peers, and developing self-concept based on how others respond to them. These relationships are also significant forums for emotional development. Remarkably, young children begin developing social understanding very early in life. Before the end of the first year, infants are aware that other people have perceptions, feelings, and other mental states that affect their behavior and which are different from the child's own mental states. This can be readily observed in a process called social referencing, in which an infant looks to the mother's face when confronted with an unfamiliar person or situation. If the mother looks calm and reassuring, the infant responds positively as if the situation is safe. If the mother looks fearful or distressed, the infant is likely to respond with wariness or distress because the mother's expression signals danger. Personality. Parents look into the faces of their newborn infants and wonder, what kind of a person will this child become? They scrutinize their baby's preferences, characteristics and responses for clues of a developing personality. They are quite right to do so because temperament is a foundation for personality growth. But temperament defines as early emerging differences in reactivity and self-regulation is not the whole story. Although temperament is biologically based, it interacts with the influence of experience from the moment of birth, if not before, to shape the personality. Temperamental dispositions are affected, for example, by the support level of parental care. More generally, personality is shaped by the goodness of fit between the child's temperamental qualities and the characteristics of the environment. Personality is the result, therefore, of the continuous interplay between biological disposition and experience, as is true for many other aspects of social and personality development. Personality develops from temperament in other ways. As children mature biologically, temperamental characteristics emerge and change over time. A newborn is not capable of much self-control, but as brain-based capacities for self-control advance, temperamental changes in self-regulation become more apparent. For example, a newborn who cries frequently doesn't necessarily have a grumpy personality. Over time, with sufficient parental support and increased sense of security, the child might be less likely to cry. Social and emotional competence. Social and personality development is built from the social, biological and representational influences discussed above. These influences result in important developmental outcomes that matter to children, parents and society. A young adult's capacity to engage in socially constructive actions such as helping, caring, sharing with others, to curb hostility or aggressive impulses to live according to meaningful moral values, to develop a healthy identity and sense of self, and also to develop talents and achieve success in using them. These are some of the developmental outcomes that denote social and emotional competence. These achievements of social and personality development derive from their interaction of many social, biological and representational influences. Consider, for example, the development of conscience, which is an early foundation of moral development. Conscience of the cognitive, emotional and social influences that causes young children to create and act consistently with internal standards of conduct. Conscience emerges from young children's experiences with parents, particularly in the development of a mutually responsive relationship that motivates young children to respond constructively to the parents' requests and expectations. Biologically based temperament is involved as some children are temperamentally more capable of motivated self-regulation, which is a quality called effortful control, than are others, while some children are dispositionally more prone to the fear and anxiety that parental disapproval can evoke. Self-concept and self-esteem. What is self-concept? Self-concept is the image we have of ourselves. This image develops in a number of ways, including through our interaction with important people in our lives. We generally think of self-concept as the perceptions, feelings and attitudes that a person has about himself or herself, and it generally includes multiple dimensions. Now, let us discuss about what is self-concept, its meaning and definition. Self-concept is how we perceive our behavior, abilities and unique characteristics. For example, beliefs such as I am a good friend or I am a kind person are a part of an overall self-concept. Our self-perception is important because it affects our motivation, attitudes and behavior. It also impacts how we feel about the person we think we are, including whether we are competent or if we have self-worth. Self-concept tends to be more malleable when we are younger and still going through the process of self-discovery and identity formation. As we age and learn who we are and what's important to us, these self-perceptions become much more detailed and organized. Self-control is not a single phenomenon but is multifaceted. It includes response initiation, the ability to not initiate a behavior before you have evaluated all the information. Response inhibition, the ability to stop a behavior that has already begun, and delayed gratification, the ability to hold out for a larger reward by foregoing a smaller immediate reward. It is in early childhood that we see the start of self-control, a process that takes many years to fully develop. In the now classic marshmallow test, children are confronted with the choice of a small immediate reward, a marshmallow, and a larger delayed reward, more marshmallows. Walter Mischel and his colleagues over the years have found that the ability to delay gratification at the age of 4 predicted better academic performance and health later in life. Children become less impulsive. This was given by Traverso, Viterbory and Usai in 2015. Another dimension of self-concept is self-esteem, which develops into being able to perceive ourselves as competent. Perceived competence reflects our belief about our ability to succeed at particular tasks. Self-esteem and feelings of competence are related to acquiring a sense of personal control. Like we discussed a bit earlier about self-control, as children grow and gain a sense of competence in more areas of life, they begin to see themselves of having more control of their environment. That is, their locus of internal control increases. Having healthy self-esteem can influence your motivation, your mental health, mental well-being, and your overall quality of life. However, having self-esteem that is either too high or too low can be problematic. Better understanding what your unique level of self-esteem can help you strike a balance that is just right for you. So what is self-esteem? In psychology, the term self-esteem is used to describe a person's overall subjective sense of personal worth or value. In other words, self-esteem may be defined as how much you appreciate and like yourself regardless of the circumstances. An individual's self-esteem is defined by many factors including 1. Self-confidence, 2. Feeling of security, 3. Identity, 4. Sense of belonging, 5. Feeling of competence. Other terms that are often used interchangeably with self-esteem include self-worth, self-regard and self-respect. Self-esteem tends to be lowest in childhood and increases during adolescence as well as adulthood, eventually reaching a fairly stable and enduring level. This makes self-esteem similar to the stability of personality traits over time. But why is self-esteem important? Self-esteem impacts our decision-making process, our relationships, our emotional health, and our overall well-being. It also influences motivation as people with a healthy, positive view of themselves understand their potential and may feel inspired to take on new challenges. Have a firm understanding of their skills. They are able to maintain a healthy relationship with others because they have a healthy relationship with themselves. They have realistic and appropriate expectations of themselves and their abilities. They understand their needs and are able to express them. Much like Sigmund Freud and Erikson, who believed that personality developed in a series of stages. Unlike Freud's theory of psychosexual stages, Erikson's theory described the impact of social experience across the whole lifespan. Erikson played a role in development and growth of human beings. Erikson also believed that a sense of competence motivates behavior and actions. Each stage in Erikson's theory is concerned with becoming competent in an area of life. If the stage is handled well, the person will feel a sense of mastery, which is sometimes referred to as ego strength or ego quality. If the stage is managed poorly, the person will emerge with a sense of inadequacy in that aspect of development. So what exactly did Erikson's theory of psychosocial development entail? Let us discuss. His stage 1 is named trust versus mistrust. The first stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development occurs between birth and 1 year of age and is the most fundamental stage in life. Because an infant is utterly dependent, developing trust is based on the dependability and quality of the child's caregivers. At this point in development, the child is utterly dependent upon adult caregivers for everything they need to survive, including food, love, warmth, safety, and nurturing. If a caregiver fails to provide adequate care and love, the child will come to feel that they cannot trust or depend upon the adults in their life. The outcomes of this stage. If a child successfully develops trust, the child will feel safe and secure in the world. Caregivers who are inconsistent emotionally, unavailable, or rejecting contribute to feelings of mistrust in the child under their care. Failure to develop trust will result in fear and a belief that the world is inconsistent and unpredictable. During the first stage of psychosocial development, children develop a sense of trust when caregivers provide reliability, care, and affection. A lack of this will lead to mistrust. No child is going to develop a sense of 100% trust or 100% doubt. Erikson believed that successful development will always be about striking a balance between the two opposing sides. When this happens, children acquire hope, which Erikson described as an openness to experience tempered by some wariness that danger may be present. Stage 2 of Erikson's theory. It is named as autonomy versus shame and doubt. The second stage of Erikson's theory of psychosocial development takes place during early childhood and is focused on children developing a greater sense of personal control. The role of independence at this point in development, children are just starting to gain a little independence. They are starting to perform basic actions on their own and making simple decisions about what they prefer. By allowing kids to make choices and gain control, parents and caregivers can help children develop a sense of autonomy. Potty training. The essential theme of this stage is that children need to develop a sense of personal control over physical skills and a sense of independence. Potty training plays an important role in helping children develop this sense of autonomy. Like Freud, Erikson believed that potty training was a vital part of their process. Erikson believed that toilet training was a vital part of this process. However, Erikson's reasoning was quite different than that of Freud's. Erikson believed that learning to control one's bodily functions leads to a feeling of control and a sense of independence. Other important events include gaining more control over food choices, toy preferences, and clothing selection. Outcomes of this stage. Children who struggle and who are shamed for their accidents may be left without a sense of personal control. Success during this stage of psychosocial development leads to feelings of autonomy. Failure results in feelings of shame and doubt. Children who successfully complete this stage feel secure and confident, while those who do not are left with a sense of inadequacy and self-doubt. Erikson believed that achieving a balance between autonomy and shame and doubt would lead to will, which is the belief that children can act with intention within the reason and limits. Stage 3. Initiative versus guilt. The third stage of psychosocial development takes place during the preschool years. At this point in psychosocial development, children begin to assert their power and control over the world through directing play and other social interactions. Children who are successful at this stage feel capable and able to lead others. Those who fail to acquire these skills are left with a sense of guilt, self-doubt, and lack of initiative. Outcomes of this stage. The major theme of the third stage of psychosocial development is that children need to begin asserting control and power over the environment. Success in this stage leads to a sense of purpose. Children who try to exert too much power experience disapproval, resulting in a sense of guilt. When an ideal balance of individual initiative and a willingness to work with others is achieved, the ego quality known as purpose emerges. Stage 4. Industry versus inferiority. The fourth psychosocial stage takes place during the early school years from approximately ages 5 to 11. Through social interactions, children begin to develop a sense of pride in their accomplishments and abilities. Children need to cope with new social and academic demands. Success leads to a sense of competence, while failure results in feelings of inferiority. Outcomes of this stage. Children who are encouraged and commended by parents and teachers develop a feeling of competence and belief in their skills. Those who receive little or no encouragement from parents, teachers, or peers will doubt their abilities to be successful. Early childhood is a time of forming an initial sense of self. Self-concept is our self-description according to various categories such as our external and internal qualities. In contrast, self-esteem is an evaluative judgment about who we are. The emergence of cognitive skills in this age group results in improved perceptions about the self. If asked to describe yourself to others, you would likely provide some physical descriptors, group affiliation, personality traits, behavioral quirks, and important values and beliefs. As a 3-year-old girl with red hair who likes to play with Legos. This focus on external qualities is referred to as the categorical self. However, even children as young as 3 know there is more to themselves than these external characteristics. Harter and Pike in 1984 challenged the method of measuring personality with an open-ended question, as they felt that language limitations were obstructing the ability of young children to express their self-knowledge. They suggested a change to the method of measuring self-concept in young children, whereby researchers provide statements that ask whether something is true of the child. Young children tend to have a generally positive self-image. This optimism is often the result of a lack of social comparison when making self-evaluation. However, this does not mean that preschool children are exempt from negative self-evaluations. Preschool children with insecure attachments to their caregivers tend to have lower self-esteem at age 4. Maternal negative affect was also found by Goodwin and her colleagues to produce more negative self-evaluations in preschool children. Let us understand how self-concept is perceived amongst children of the age 7 to 11 years. According to Erikson, the primary developmental task of middle childhood is to attain industry or the feeling of social competence. Competition such as athletics, daredevil activities and numerous social adjustments such as trying to make and keep friends mark this age's developmental stage. Successfully developing industry helps a child build self-esteem or an evaluative attitude toward the self, which in turn builds the self-confidence necessary to form lasting and effective social relationships. Most boys and girls develop a positive sense of self-understanding, self-definition and self-control in middle childhood. Supportive and loving parents, teachers and friends who make the children feel competent foster this type of development. When lacking skills in one area, children in this age group typically find another area in which to excel. Excelling in an area contributes to a child's overall sense of self-esteem and belonging in the social world. For example, a child who does not like math may take up piano as a hobby and discover a talent for music. The more positive experiences that child have excelling in one or more areas, the more likely that these children will develop the self-confidence necessary to confront new social challenges. Self-esteem, self-worth, regulation and confidence ultimately form a child's self-concept. Now let us summarize. The word personality used by a common man is different from its meaning as a technical term. The common man uses the term personality only to refer to the structure of individual. The term personality, as we know, has originated from the Latin word persona, which means mask. In psychological literature, personality is defined from different angles. The most appropriate definition has been given by Allport. People also use the term character, temperament and self similar to personality, but they have different meanings. The development of personality begins from early infancy stages. Every person is unique. Therefore, there is a requirement to understand the factors which affect personality. Heredity and environment are some of the important determinants of personality. 3 levels of analysis is involved in the study of development of an individual's personality, which include biological system, psychological system and sociological or group system. There are different developmental tasks for the different stages of life. All human beings go through similar stages of growth, but variations are also found. Thus, personality development is ever changing and is subject to contextual factors and life-altering experiences. Its development is also dimensional in description and subjective in nature. That is, personality development can be seen as a continuum varying in degrees of intensity and change. It is subjective in nature because its conceptualization is rooted in social norms of expected behavior, self-expression and personal growth. The external appearance of personality is related to the socio-biological part of the human. The dominant viewpoint in personality psychology indicates that personality emerges early and continues to develop across one's lifespan. Adult personality traits are believed to have a basis in infant temperament and attachment styles, meaning that individual differences in disposition and behavior appear early in life, potentially before language of consciousness, self-representation develop. The better they tend to deal with what lies ahead, but this is not to say that all is lost and never to be recovered if a person has had a negative experience during any particular crisis stage. Lessons can be revisited successfully when they occur if we recognize and welcome them.